Hi guys, I'm PUTSY. Welcome to my channel, and on today's video, I'm going to talk about all the books that becomes my favorite from each month from 2024 and put them in a bracket, make them go against one another, and hopefully by the end of it, I can find out what actually my absolute top favorite book of 2024. So my favorite book from each month doesn't necessarily translate to become my absolute favorite of 2024, which I actually think I'm going to post my favorite 24 books, my favorite read of 2024 tomorrow. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. Hopefully I can edit them on time, hopefully, but that's my plan at the moment. And yeah, like I said, my favorite from each month doesn't necessarily become my favorite because some month I read, for example, 3 books, but all 3 of them ended up becoming my absolute favorite of the year. But then some other month I read like 6 or 8 books, but most, if not all of them, are actually just okay, not my favorite. So the books that I will talk about in this one will probably be slightly different than my favorite books video, and I think it's kind of fun to put them in a bracket because I actually got inspired by my reading journal, my digital reading journal. I've been searching for a good one for years, but I haven't found anything that I really like, the design, the style that fits everything that I want and need from a reading journal. But then kind of randomly during Black Friday sale couple months back, I found this particular reading journal on Etsy on sale, and I was like, this is such a huge sale, let me look at it. I look at it, it looks kind of good and it's really cheap, so I decided might as well just try it out, see if I like it or not. I could always find something better, so I bought it. Turns out it's actually really good, really complete. I like the style, the design, and there's so many interesting pages, challenges within this reading journal. I'm gonna try to link it down below. It's not sponsored whatsoever, obviously, but I just really like this reading journal if you want to do it digitally. I also use Notion, Goodreads, and Storycraft to track my reading, which is, I know, very excessive, but I actually like to just write things down and rate them all in different places. I don't know why, but who knows, maybe in 2025 I will just use this particular reading journal. But also, I know a lot of people do this kind of like video, rank tier them, put them in a bracket, tell you their favorite reads of each month, which also makes me want to make this video even more. But my original idea came from this reading journal, so I thought, let me just make it into a video. Yeah, here we are. So I already list my favorite book of each month right here, but we're going to put them in a bracket together. So without further ado, I already talked way too much for the intro. I'm just gonna scoot over and show you the book cover here. So for January, I have Club 22 by Tate James. I read the last 3 from the Hate series at the start of the year, but Club 22 is definitely my favorite from that month and from that series in general. I give it 5 stars. It was so good, so much fun, very action-packed. I think I can say that it's considered to be a dark romance. There are reverse harem trope, 1 female main character and 3 male characters. Those 3 guys fall in love with Hades, but Hades is also kind of like the leader of a gang or like a very important club that are very feared within this city. There are some mystery and revenge plot going on. It's so much fun, action-packed, more than just romance and steamy scenes, which I really like, because even though I read a lot of smutty, steamy romances, I also don't like when it's just about that every single chapter, which I think this one is so much more than just romance and all of that. And I personally think this book deserves a little bit more hype. Yeah, definitely my favorite from January. For February, I have Magnolia Parks Into the Dark by Jessa Hastings. I will always talk about this book forever and ever. I can honestly say it probably will end up in my top 20 favorite read ever because it's so good. I love Magnolia and BJ. I love the healing, the growth that they have to go through within this book and throughout the whole entire series. But This book was so emotional, so impactful, so many beautiful quotes. Jessa's writing is just so beautiful and incredible. I still think about Magnolia BJ in this book almost every single day. That's how much I love this book, so obviously I just have to put that into my favorite of February. For March, The Doctor by Nikki Sloan is my favorite. It's the first book from, I think, the Nashville Neighborhood series or something like that. I've been wanting to read this one for quite some time. I actually don't know why, but I've seen a lot of people talk about this book, so I kind of like, oh, I want to read that. It's an age gap taboo romance about a girl who fall in love with the dad of her ex-boyfriend. Very taboo secret relationship that ended up just a little bit complicated, obviously because of who our main male character is. It's also quite steamy, and also this series is interconnected standalone series. You don't have to read any of them, but I always read standalone series in order. I actually only give this book 3.5 or 3.75 stars or something like that. Not my absolute favorite, but for what it was quite fun and definitely the better books I've read from March. My favorite from April was The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. This is a standalone YA mystery thriller book from her. The first book I've read from her actually, and I really liked it. So much fun, so entertaining, quite fast paced. The ending, it was a little bit shocking, but also still quite believable, but very crazy at the same time. And I just particularly enjoy YA mystery thriller, maybe because I grew up with Pretty Little Liars or something. So I always love this type of book, which is why it became my favorite from April. In May, my favorite was Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is the first book from Lakefront Billionaire series, another interconnected standalone series by her. I actually really love this series way more than the Dreamland Billionaire series. I honestly mainly read it because of the cover. I don't know why, because Dreamland Billionaires, even though I really like them, wasn't really my favorite series. I haven't even read the last book from that one when I read this book. But this cover, for some reason, just convinced me, so I read it and ended up really liking it. I think I gave it 5 stars actually. It's obviously a story about a billionaire who fall in love. I think the guy who owns like a real estate company or something like that, who upgrade houses within this small town, and it's a story about him and her childhood best friend. I think he always loved her, but something happened when they were younger who kind of make them grow apart, and our main female character is actually now a very famous design interior, come back to the city because of something that happened to her recently. She came back and they kind of come back together and fall in love. What I love about this series in particular, I think the family dynamic and relationship, they are very much present within this book. Obviously in the Dreamland, it's about a three brother, but they have very strange and just a unique family dynamic, especially with their dad and everything. But in this one, I love a very close-knit, tight relationship within their family, not just the guy and his family, the girl and her family, but also their family together, because obviously they grew up together, their parents are best friends and everything. So I just love that aspect of this series, and I just had such great time reading it. So obviously it became my favorite from that month. Now for June, I genuinely don't know what book I want to put it here, so I put 2 books for June, which is Bear Town by Freddie Beckman and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I think in terms of which one is a better book, Bear Town is definitely better in terms of writing, the storyline, the way the story was told, the emotion that I got from it. It was so good and emotional. What I love about Frederick's writing is the fact that he managed to make me connect and see every single character, and every single character are so unique and different from one another. The story is told through multiple different point of view perspective, but he did it so well that made me just really appreciate and understand every single character and their backstory and everything. And there's something in this book towards the end especially that made me really emotional and angry and understood all at the same time because of what happened to one of the main female character in this book, and it's just heartbreaking, and I loved it a lot. But I also put Good Girl's Guide to Murder here mainly because I'm kind of obsessed with this series. This is yet another YA mystery thriller. I love Pip's character. In this first book, she tried to solve a murder or like a disappearance case of someone in her town that happened like 5 years ago. She make it into her school assignments and ended up actually solve the case, which is so much fun. I love the friendship. I also read the whole entire series and I love every single one of them, but especially the first book. I think it was just so much fun and entertaining, fast paced. I liked it. So in terms of entertaining, I was hooked by this book, which is why I don't know which one I should put as my favorite from June. But I just really like both of these books for very completely different reasons. For July, my absolute favorite is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. It's a book within the Throne of Glass series. I wasn't so sure about Throne of Glass series at first, I have to be honest. Before Queen of Shadows, I was like, I like this series, but it's not my absolute favorite. I still don't understand why everyone put this as like top tier, absolute favorite Holy Grail series, fantasy series of all time. I think the turning point for me was Queen of Shadows. It made me realize, oh, this is what everyone is talking about. I really like the characters. I love the romance plot. I connect to them. I just love them as individually and as a couple so much more because of this book. The action are so much fun, very action packed. I start to understand more of the plot, the magic system, all the trouble, the turbulence, the problems that exist within this universe so much more because of this one. Every single character's storyline are so entertaining to read. I like them. I just love this book a lot and I gave it 5 stars. For August, my favorite was If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. This is the first book within the duology. I haven't read the second book, so I cannot say what it is about, but in this first one, we go through this storyline of a girl and a boy who have been best friends since they were born, basically, because their moms are best friends, they're also neighbors. They grew up together, always been like this, so close. I think everyone expect them to end up together, but something happened when they start to become a teenager. Not only they don't talk with each other anymore, they kind of become a rival in their school because they belong to a different group of friends who kind of like against one another at school. I think the story was only told from our female character's perspective, if I'm not mistaken, but it's only like one point of view, I think, and it was so sad to see how they always should end up together, but they're not, only because of a misunderstanding, which I usually have a hate and love relationship with that trope, because while I hate when it's happening, I always end up really loving the release when they finally talk to each other. And the ending of this book is very, very sad, very tragic, and I cried a lot. Like none of what happened in the end, I think, would actually happen if they just talked years before. Definitely the saddest book I've read in 2024, and I love sad book, which is why I put it here. In September, my favorite read was Never Lie by Frida McFadden. I think this is probably one of my favorite Frida McFadden's book I've read. I've read quite a lot, not all of them, but at least 75% of her books, I think. And I listened to the audiobook. It was so much fun. Her books are always fast-paced, and I just couldn't stop reading. Every single chapter, I always have new theories, and by the end of it, when the twist, the ending was revealed, I always somehow still shocked. But sometimes they're not always a good shock and not quite believable. But in this one, even though it's very shocking and crazy, I still believe that it could happen. And just the storyline throughout the whole entire stories before the ending are also so good. It's about someone who stay in this big mansion in the middle of nowhere, but there's also an ominous past within this house because it was owned by very famous author slash psychologist who ended up just disappeared into thin air one day, and she still hasn't been found. So the person who stayed in this place start to find, I don't know who she is actually. I kind of forgot like the details, who this person was and everything, but I just remember they stay in this place and they start to find some clues that will end up lead them to what actually happened to this author who owned the place. And the story told through different timelines. One was from the present time when this person stayed in this big mansion. The other one, we follow along the storyline of the author slash therapist from kind of her first journey up until her disappearance. And it was just so good. I really liked it. Next October, my favorite was Noctacadia by Carrie Lake. It's so good. I didn't know what to expect out of this one, but I mainly read it because of the cover. I like skulls, but the premise of it seems interesting. I also heard McKay talk about this book in some of their videos, so I decided to read it, and I was so glad because it is a dark romance, but it is so much more than just the romance. I think it is more dark, mysterious book with a heavy plot romance in it. There's an age gap student teacher trope in it. The story is about a girl who tried to find out what happened to her late mother. She was dead because of a very strange disease, I think because of a worm or something like that, but no one believed her that that's what happened to her mom until one day a very prestigious school gave her a year scholarship, and the university exists within a very private island. So she went to that university in hopes of finally try to find out what happened to her mom. And in this university, her professor is actually doing a research that might potentially have something to do with that. And it's also a romance story between her and that professor. There's also a secret society involved, a lot of mysteriousness involved. It was quite eerie at times, and I just love the whole vibe of this book. I like the storyline, the mystery, the romance. Yeah, I just love this book. Next, in November, my favorite was Yours Truly by Abi Jimenez. It's actually the second book from Part of Your World series, another interconnected standalone series. I mainly read the first two because I want to read just for the summer. That's what everyone is talking about. I ended up reading the first two because I want to read them in order, and I'm glad I did because I really like this book. I love the main character, especially the mailman character. Jacob is such a wholesome guy. He's so nice to everyone, always puts everyone else's need before himself. I kind of see myself in him quite a little bit because he's also very introvert. He also has a little bit of social anxiety. I don't think I have, but I'm very introvert, so I can kind of understand him like a lot, and I like that. There's also a little bit of a misunderstanding happening, especially in the middle of the book, which is a little bit frustrating, but overall I love this book. It's also a fake date trope between Jacob and Dr. Brianna, and I just love their whole dynamic and banter, especially when they start their relationship with each other by writing letters. It's just so cute and wholesome. I love it. I love this book a lot. Last, in December, my favorite was Empire of Storms by Sarah Jemas, another book within the Throne of Glass series. It's actually the last book I've read from Throne of Glass. I haven't read the last two books. I know I should have read Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms in tandem, but I didn't because I want to just absorb the story on its own, and I don't know if that's a good decision, but as of right now I kind of glad I did because I love this book so much. It's very action packed, much more than Queen of Shadows, and because I love Queen of Shadows so much, by the time I go in this book, I'm just like so hyped. I already connected and obsessed with every single main character, the friendship, the crew, and I already understand a lot more about the magic system, the world, and everything. And going into this book, everything gets so much more complex, but we also get a lot of answered, a lot of things was revealed, everything start to click into one another. Everything that I thought was just like, what is going on, start to make sense, just weave together, connect with each other beautifully, which I think just so amazing that Sarah J. Maas managed to do that. Even things that was just, I thought, a little bit unnecessary, just know in passing from the first two books, start to make sense and come together beautifully in this one. It's just so good. It's crazy. The end of it was incredible. I was emotional. And yeah, I feel a lot of emotion, like from happy, sad, sitting at the edge of my seat, intense, like everything. And I love this book a lot. So this is my current bracket situation. Let's go putting them against one another. For January against February, I think it's kind of obvious. My favorite was, even though I really love Club 22, I just have to put Magnolia Parks as the winner. And March against April, I think the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson is definitely a better book. In my personal opinion, it's definitely a better book and also my favorite one. For May against June, while I still think Bear Town as a general as a whole is a better book, has better writings compared to all three of these, but as my favorite, I think I have to put Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher as the winner. July against August, Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. It's so good. September against October, I think Noctacadia by Carrie Lake. It's such an amazing book, honestly. I thoroughly enjoyed it and was honestly quite surprised of how much I love this book, and I definitely highly recommend. November against December, now I really love Yours Truly, but Empire of Storms, honestly it was such an amazing book. So now our top 3 is Magnolia Parks Into the Dark by Jessa Hastings, Sarah J. Maas Queen of Shadows, and Empire of Storms, also by Sarah J. Maas. They're actually my top 3 favorite read of 2024. Or maybe I shouldn't be surprised because obviously they will end up becoming my top 3 no matter what. So yeah, these are my top 3 of the year. And if I have to pick one as my absolute top favorite book of the year, now that's a little bit difficult because I do love every single one of these 3 books for different reasons. I don't know what I should choose. You know what? I think I know. I think in my heart, I definitely know that Magnolia Parks Into the Dark is my absolute favorite read. Like I said, it will become one of my favorite read of all time because mainly of how I felt. I still remember how I felt reading this book, where I was, what I was doing. I felt so many emotion. I cried a lot and I just feel such connection to a lot of the things that were said within this book. So many beautiful quotes, so beautiful, the writing, the characters, the journey, their healing, their character growth, everything. I loved it a lot. It's such a great book, honestly, even if you don't love Magnolia and BJ, but I definitely think if you don't love them together as a couple before, after you read this book, you absolutely should. If this doesn't make you love them and see why they should always end up together, then I don't know what will, because it just solidified them as a perfect couple, for each other, in my opinion. So yeah, and I just think it made such a lasting impact in my heart, in my soul, and in my brain, which is why I should put them as my absolute favorite book of the year of 2024, even though I love Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms so much. Wow, I'm glad I finally find out what my absolute favorite book of the year is, even though I think I've always known ever since I started the book. I just know that it's gonna be one of my favorite, if not my absolute favorite of the year. And I'm glad it actually is, because it's such a great book. I will never stop talk about and even think about this book. And yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are somehow still here, I just want to say thank you so much. Maybe also subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and also please leave a comment down below which book is your absolute favorite book of 2024. And also, if you're still here, maybe leave a purple heart emoji. I don't know, that just an emoji that comes into my brain right at that second. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope I can see you in another video, hopefully tomorrow, maybe. And yeah, bye guys.